Greetings, folk. Welcome to yet another edition of User Delight with Microsoft Technology. My name is Sanjiv Venkatram. What we're going to do today is to talk about a very important operation called merge or merging your data within Power Query inside of Power BI. So what we do is open up Power BI Desktop, we go to Transform Data and open up our Power Query Editor. Here, we're going to actually get an Excel. So I'm going to say new source, go to Excel, and I'm going to click on this Excel that says joins while merging and click on open. So here we've got two tables. It shows up in your navigator shortly. And there you go. Those are the two tables. And let us actually look at this data, stare at this data that's come in the two tables. So table one basically has got orders that were made by customers. So customer one, two, and three have actually made orders at different dates for different products, let us say for different amounts, right? And these are essentially transactions. So customer three looks like has made two orders, customer one has made one, and two has made the other. Now, table two basically has customer details. This is a master table of all the customer information. You've got customer ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the names, the first name, the last name, and the city. The idea here is to get the customer details, the names and the city in which they live in, into table one. So let us actually see how we are able to do this. This is very similar to doing VLOOKUP within Excel or doing joins in your SQL server, okay? So we'll start with table one. That's the transactions. We need to get the names and the city information. So I'm going to say merge queries here in Power Query. I'm going to go to merge queries as new. And then I'm going to basically select, this is table one. I'm going to actually select table two here. The common ID between the two is basically the customer ID. Now, the customer ID in table two is the primary key because it is basically unique. There are no duplicates here. And customer ID in table one, where, it is a foreign key because there are duplicates here. Now, once we have the primary key, foreign key identified in the master table and the transaction table, we have various kinds of join, and let's explore this, right? The first one is left outer join, which brings all the data from the first table and the matching from table two, which means to say we're going to actually get the names and the city for ID 1, 2, and 3 because those are the matching entries. So it basically says selection matches 4 of 4 rows. If I click on OK, and then here's the merge table, I get this table 2 that has been embedded in table 1 now, and you see this double-headed arrow. I'm going to click on this guy, and basically I get to select the column headers. I'm going to basically say remove this original column name as a prefix because we don't need that. We don't need the customer ID because we've already had the customer ID here in the first table. I need the first name, last name, and the city. I'm going to click on OK, and voila, I actually get the first name, last name, and city into the first table. So this is left outer join. I'm going to delete this guy. Let's actually see another kind of join. Now I'm going to click on table one again, go to merge queries as new, and then go to the second table, table two, select the same IDs, primary, foreign key and the primary key. And then I'm going to go to right outer join. What does right outer join do? Bring everything from the second table and matching from the first table, which means to say for John and Sarah, even though the names are there, there's not going to be any IDs. Any orders. Those are going to be empty because there are no entries in the transaction table. So it matches 3 of 5 rows from the second table. So if I click on OK, lo and behold, there is the merge, merge data. And the table 2 has been embedded into table 1. So if I do the double-headed arrow, remove the customer ID here, and then I have deselected this original column name as a prefix before. If I click on OK, lo and behold, all of the data from the second table is here, Tom, Matt, Greg, John, and Sarah. But from John and Sarah, there are nulls because there are no orders, okay? So I'm going to actually delete this guy. Let us actually go to the third option, right? So I'm going to click on table 1 again, go to merge queries as new. And what I'm going to do is to select table 2 here again. and I'm going to actually select the same foreign key, primary key, but in this case, I'm going to say full outer, which means to say it is a union of the two data. So we should actually see all of the entries, except that for John and Sarah, there's going to be no data, much like right outer join. So I'm going to click on OK. This goes away, brings all the data in, and if I go to the double-headed arrow, remove the customer ID, lo and behold, the all data is in one, it's union, and you see that for John and Sarah, there are no entries here, okay? So I'm going to delete this merge one again, and I'm going to go over to table one again, and then go to merge queries as new, and then go over to table two, select my table 2 here, select my customer ID, in both, and then I'm going to go over to inner. Now, inner is an intersection, much like your left outer join. Basically, when you intersect these two data, customer ID 1, 2, and 3 are all that's actually going to show up because that is common between the two, right? If I click OK, table 2 comes in. If I click on the double-headed arrow, remove the customer IDs, lo and behold, you're only going to see 1, 2, and 3 because that is the intersection of the two tables for Tom, Matt, and Greg, right? Excellent. So I'm going to actually delete this guy, and then I'm going to go over to the next set of joins, right? So I'm going to say merge queries as new, and then I'm going to actually select table 2, the foreign key, and the primary key. And this case, I'm going to actually select left anti. What does left anti do? The idea here is to see if, the person who has table 1, does the person have all the data that I have is one option. The other option here is to basically see, does that person have anything more than I do? If the person is table 1, I have table 2, I want to know if table 1 has got more data than I do in table 2, right? So I'm going to actually select left anti, click OK, and obviously table 1 has got everything I do because it's customer ID 1, 2, and 3. I've got 1, 2, and 3, so there is no additional data that the other person has. So when I go to the double-headed arrow and click OK, it's going to show me nothing. The table is going to be empty because that person has got everything that I have. Okay, so that's left anti. Now, clearly, the next option, right anti, is the mirror opposite. It's what do I have that the other person doesn't have, right? So if I go to table 1, go to merge queries as new, and then I'm going to select table 2, and I'm going to actually select, the foreign key and the primary key, and I go right anti here. Basically, what it does is the idea here is what if table 1 is the other person's table, table 2 is my table. I'm trying to find out what do I have that the other person doesn't have. Clearly, I've got John and Sarah. So if I click OK and then go away, in this case, I'm going to select the customer ID. And then if I click OK, you will see that 4 and 5, John and Sarah is what I have that the other person doesn't have. Okay. So this hopefully, or I trust this actually gives you an idea of the different ways by which you can actually join data. Okay. There is one other option here. If you had noticed, if I were to go to merge queries, let's merge queries or as new, you will see here there is an option to use fuzzy matching, to perform merges. We'll look at that in the next video. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. Cheers. Greetings, folk. Welcome to another edition of User Delight with Microsoft Technology. My name is Sanjiv Venkatram. And what we're going to do in this case is to look at an interesting option within the merge operation in Power Query that does not hinge on common IDs between, let us say, two tables that you're actually trying to merge. Okay. As an example, I've got query 1 here, which has customer names and locations. Okay. And then I should actually call this query 2, right? And I've got query 2 here, which has got similar sounding customer names. They're not exact. You see, if I go to query 1, it says Standard Chartered Bank Private Limited. And if I go to query 2, it says Standard Chartered Bank SCB Private Limited. So they're essentially the same bank, maybe, which has different names, right? And the idea here is because there are no common IDs between these two, you see, there are no customer IDs between these two, right? Or company IDs. The idea here is to use fuzzy lookup matching and some statistical matching to see how many names we can actually match. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to go to query one and I'm going to merge queries here. Merge is new. And then if I were to select the query two, the second table here and select the company names here, if I were to use traditional matching, which is left outer or right outer or whatever it is, that is a traditional, very sort of databasey, concepts, I only see 2 of the 9 rows actually match. The remaining don't match for the simple reason the names are obviously different. So what do I do in this case? I open up fuzzy lookup matching, and basically I will first select fuzzy lookup matching. And then I get this option for a similarity threshold that goes from 0 to 1, and 1 being a perfect match. So if I say 1 here, this says selection of 2 of 9 rows based on left outer join. Whereas if I now say 0.9 instead of 1, it's now matching 5 of 9 rows. Why is that? Because it's actually looking for statistical mapping of text characters between the rows of customer names within the first and the second. And it's saying, hey, look, based on this, 5 of 9 rows actually match. If I were to lower this threshold to zero point 0.8, I see 6 of 9 rows. If I go to 0.5, let us say, I actually see 7 of 9 rows, right? So if I were to choose like a 50% probability and click OK, so lo and behold, this has gone away and brought table 2 or query 2 into query 1. If I click on the double-headed arrow, I'm going to click on OK. You'll actually see that it has mapped a fair number of names together, even though they're different, except for 2, right? This overseas OCBC and then this AstraZeneca are 2 that are outliers. Now, maybe the probability is so far out that these 2 don't actually match. Now, you got to be careful here as you're doing this to kind of set the right threshold. You experiment a little bit and set the right threshold so that you can actually match as many names as possible, okay? So this is called as fuzzy lookup matching. Where does it come in handy? As the case that you're looking at here, if you have some internal data, customer data that has your internal customer ID and your bought data externally, let us say from Dun& Bradstreet, which has got, customer revenue and employees and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, the external ID doesn't match the internal ID. The only thing you've got to go on is names, and then you can then use fuzzy lookup matching to marry the two together. Okay, I trust this was helpful. See you shortly in other videos. Take care, folks. Cheers.